Welcome to the Explainer. Listen, if you own a home in Sydney, you already know that replacing your roof is, well, it's easily one of the highest stakes, most stressful decisions you can possibly make. You're looking at massive budgets, endless choices, and honestly, a ton of confusing sales pitches. So today, we're cutting right through the noise. I'm going to give you a complete, totally BS-free breakdown of the most popular roofing option out there right now, steel roofing. By the time we wrap this up, you're going to know exactly whether it's the right fit for your place.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, the Sydney roofing dilemma. 2, what is modern steel? 3, built for Aussie extremes. 4, when to avoid steel. 5, how installation works. And finally, is it right for you? Let's get right into it.
Section 1, the Sydney roofing dilemma. Overwhelming choices. Okay, let's dive into this. Because when it comes to your roof, the sheer volume of information out there is, well, it's a lot. You get hit with all these unlimited choices and competing sales spiels before you even swing a hammer.
And here's why that causes so much anxiety. Replacing your roof is literally a one-shot deal. You only get one chance to get this right. It's a huge financial investment that acts as the physical shield for everything you own. That is exactly why getting clear, impartial advice is absolutely crucial. You can't just follow a trend here. You really have to understand the nuts and bolts of what you're putting over your head.
Section 2, what is modern steel? The smart, tough option. So, that brings us to the solution we're seeing absolutely dominate the Sydney suburbs right now. Let's talk about what modern steel roofing actually is, because wow, it has come a long way in the last few decades. When we say steel roofing today, we're talking about a seriously tough, smart option. These are high-quality, interlocking steel sheets that get treated with some heavy-duty protective coatings to fight off rust, fading, and just general wear and tear. Here in Australia, you'll usually hear this called Colorbond steel, and it's engineered specifically for us to handle our brutal sun, our salty coastal air, the whole shebang. Think about the fundamental difference here between steel and your traditional tile roof. It's like a giant puzzle. A tile roof is made up of hundreds of tiny, separate parts, right? Which means hundreds of joints and seams, basically weak spots where wind and water can sneak in. But steel sheets? They are large and interlocking. They run continuously all the way from the peak of your roof right down to the gutter. It's a seamless defense system. So, in the middle of a massive Sydney storm, there's just less that can go wrong because there are way fewer entry points for the weather. Section 3, built for Aussie extremes, tackling harsh climates. Speaking of wild weather, let's look at how this material holds up to our incredibly harsh Australian climate.
Because let's face it, our climate throws everything at a house. Blistering heat, lightning, gale force winds, and those torrential downpours. The raw durability of steel here is pretty mind-blowing. Unlike tiles, steel doesn't crack, it doesn't shift around, and it definitely won't absorb water when it's pouring. Plus, and this is a real game changer, modern steel is designed to bounce intense heat away. If you go with a lighter color, it literally reflects the sun. For homes out in hot spots like Western Sydney, that is huge for keeping the house cool and giving your air conditioning a bit of a break.
It gets really interesting when you look at folks living on the coast. Take a spot like Wollongong. The salty air and that relentless wind, they're absolutely brutal on traditional roofs. Homeowners just get stuck in this frustrating, expensive cycle of constant tile repairs. That's why so many of them eventually just throw their hands up and switch to steel. That continuous, sealed design we just talked about is vastly superior at fighting off corrosion and wind-driven rain. It's about finally putting an end to the endless patching. Oh, and there is a critical safety factor we absolutely have to talk about. Steel does not burn. For anyone living up in the Blue Mountains or the Central Coast, bushfire resistance isn't just a nice to have. It's non-negotiable. Steel won't catch fire, it won't warp, and it won't crack under that extreme heat. Installed correctly, it actually helps seal your roof space off from those dangerous flying embers. It is a massive layer of defense. Now, what's really interesting about this next point is the structural advantage, which honestly gets overlooked all the time. Steel is incredibly strong, but it is way, way lighter than tile. All across Sydney's older brick suburbs, people want to upgrade their roofs, but they don't want to crush their aging house frames under tons of new weight. Lightweight steel is perfect for this. It modernizes the house without stressing the bones of the building, meaning a much simpler install without needing crazy structural reinforcements. All right, we have to address the elephant in the room, the old noisy tin roof myth. You know, the idea that a metal roof in a rainstorm sounds like you're living inside a drum? Actually, scratch that. Decades ago, an uninsulated metal roof was deafening. But today, total myth. Modern steel roofing uses heavy-duty insulation, high-quality sarking, and secure fixings that completely kill the noise. Once you're inside with a modern ceiling setup, you literally can't tell the difference between steel and tile when it's raining. Section 4. When to avoid steel. Knowing the limitations. Okay, so steel sounds pretty amazing, right? But to give you the honest, objective truth, we have to admit that steel is not the magic bullet for literally every single house out there. There are definitely times when sticking with tiles just makes more sense. For instance, if you've got strict heritage requirements, or if your home's architecture completely relies on that classic tile look, slapping modern steel on top might totally ruin the property's character. Also, if things are tight financially and you just need a couple of cheap, localized patch repairs right now to get by, a full steel replacement obviously isn't the answer. Knowing these caveats is super important. What works for your neighbor might be a terrible move for you. Section 5. How installation works. The structural timeline. Let's move to and see how this builds in the real world, because demystifying the actual construction timeline is the absolute best way to cut down your stress. Professional crews, like the guys at Topline Roofing, follow a really strict 4-step process. Step 1 is the look and measure. They assess your structure and pick materials perfectly suited to your local weather. Step 2 is the big one, pulling off the old roof and fixing any rotting timber or structural issues underneath. You don't want to build on a bad foundation. Step 3 is installing those new steel sheets, the insulation, and perfectly sealing it all up to stop any leaks. And Step 4? A rigorous final check to make sure it meets all the strict Aussie building standards. When it's done right, this whole thing usually wraps up in just a few days. Section 6. Is it right for you? Evaluate your property. All right, we have covered a lot of ground today. Let's bring it all together so you can figure out your absolute best next steps. So, the million-dollar question. Should you make the switch to steel? Honestly, it entirely depends on the unique profile of your home. Your local moisture levels, the sun exposure, salt air, the wind, it changes from suburb to suburb. Your specific location and your current roof's condition are going to dictate the right answer here. To make it easy, run through this quick checklist. Steel is probably a fantastic choice for you if your current roof is on its last legs. You are totally sick of the endless, expensive cycle of patching broken tiles. Your house gets battered by coastal winds or faces bushfire threats. Or you just really want a sleek, modern, low-maintenance roof that's going to last for decades. If you're nodding along to those, steel is definitely your frontrunner. But hey, guessing from the street just doesn't cut it. The only real way to know for sure is to get an expert up there to look at it. The experts from our source material at A2S Topline Roofing actually offer honest, totally free, no-pressure, on-site inspections across Sydney, Wollongong, the Blue Mountains, and the Central Coast. It's the best way to get absolute clarity on what you actually need. I'm going to leave you with this one final thought to chew on today. Your roof physically protects everything you own, literally everything. It shields your family, your stuff, and the entire structural integrity of your house. So ask yourself, are you treating your roof like the real hero of your home? Because if it's time to give that hero an upgrade, use what you've learned in this explainer, book an inspection, and take control of your home's future. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.